Now, to introduce myself, I am Miles Rookard. I am the product owner of the budgeting and forecasting tool that we do have here at MRI. I have been with MRI for about 2 years now, and my expertise is financial solutions. So my background ranges from manufacturing to banking to forecasting, and now into budgeting and forecasting for software. So I am happy to be here. Within the past 2 years, we have released quite a few enhancements to budgeting and forecast that I'm really excited about. Again, unfortunately, with this only being a 20 to 30-minute presentation, I do not have a ton of time to show you everything we've released, but I do have some demos, and those demos today will focus around budgeting in the commercial space, managing budgets over time, and then commercial prospect entry and management. And lastly, we're going to follow that up with the Q&A session that I described earlier in the introduction. All of these items are available as of X58, which was released about 2 months ago, but they have also been released over time in the past year or so. So to look at those releases that we are talking about, in June of 2020, we did release our X56. In September of 2020, we released X57, and most recently, as I mentioned, in March of 2021, we did release X58. So the 4 demos I'm going to show you, they are all available as of March 2021 and are fully functioning as part of our BNF product. So what we heard when it came to budgeting of commercial space is we kept hearing, the same sort of requests and the same challenges that our users had. That first item is tedious to adjust start dates over time. So having to click into a lease and adjust the date, just very time consuming. Having to open a prospect to do the same thing versus easily being able to move it around. Can't see when spaces become available. This one in part was due to the fact that on our suite view, you can only see 12 months of the budget. So if you have a 5-year budget, you can only see 12 months, and who knows what year that lease you're looking at is going to expire, and that lease space will become open up for someone else to go into it. Third, there's the centralized interactive view. So something where users are able to click, drag, drop, really easily just move stuff around. We do have a 4th item on here of easily being able to identify renewals from commercial management options. And then lastly, you always had to click inside a lease to see a tenant's name. So we do believe that we've made some big enhancements here. And what we are calling this is we're actually calling this the enhanced suite view. So let's go take a quick look at that. I've got a demo, so let's jump in and see what that demo looks like. All right, so to start off with the demo, as you can tell, this is the classic suite view that you are used to looking at. It is, very standard. It's got the 12 months of the lease in there. It's got the it's got the little blocks, the kind of gradual filling of a month if something is a partial month, and we have the enhanced suite view button. So when you click on that enhanced suite view button, what you'll immediately notice is you're going to go to a brand new page. The first thing that you'll notice about this page is that if you scroll from left to right on it, it's going to take you to the very end of the budget. So instead of having to have a drop down for 2020, 2021, 2022, for example, you can now just scroll from the left, which will be 2020, and go all the way to the right, which will be December of 2022. Next, we do have an option to show leases with a renewal option in them. So if we click on the filter, we apply the filter, it's going to actually take us down to only one lease here that does have that renewal option in it. And you can also tell that there's this renewal option because it's got the little reload symbol in front of the tenant name. Speaking of the tenant name, you can notice that the tenant name's there. So if you do click on the lease, you can apply the renewal option by the option down at the bottom of the screen. We're not going to do that here, but I just did want to show you that that can be done very easily. And when you click the renewal option, it will renew it, and it will show up on the budget as that goldish color to identify it as a lease from a renewal option. So next real cool thing that we did do is we were able to make this drag and droppable. So everyone likes being able to use their mouse to click on stuff, drag it around. So you can drag the start date, you can drag the end date. If you click in the middle of the lease, you can actually grab the whole lease and adjust it. So if it's 12-month lease and you want to adjust the start date, you can adjust the start date and it will push the rest of the lease back to keep it that 12-month lease. A couple additional items that you can do is you are actually able to do multiple at once. So you can click on one or two leases. Actually, you could click on every single lease on this screen right now, and you would be able to adjust them all in the exact same way. Another real cool thing that we did do was we were able to make it so if there is a future prospect or a future lease and you're trying to adjust the start date on it, but it has a lease that ends before it. So in this case, Milo's Magic Shop ends before the shop from Otis, and it's not going to let me create an overlapping lease here. It's going to stop the start date at the end date of the first lease, or it's going to keep the downtime if I adjust the end date of that first lease, and it will adjust that second lease. Real cool stuff. One thing that I do want to make sure to let everyone know is how important it is to click save, because if you do not click save, it's not going to keep the adjustments you made. So if you're just kind of moving it around, those adjustments will be lost if you exit out or go to a different view before clicking save. And then we did notice that the application gateway popped up, but I did also want to let everyone know that if you go to your preferences, you're able to set the enhanced suite view as your standard view when opening up the suite view. So all you have to do is go into preferences, budgeting and forecasting, workbook preferences, and click on the enhanced view, and that will make this new view your starting point every time you open a suite view, which personally is how I've got mine set up, just because I do enjoy this new view so much, and I think it makes working within the view that much easier when you can see the full budget at once. You can easily drag and drop items. But yeah, so that was a quick look at the demo. If we can go ahead and we can recap real quick what we actually saw. So just a quick recap on the enhanced commercial suite view, as we are calling it, is that the key info is always visible. So if we're looking at the tenant name, if we're looking at the dates of the actual lease, as soon as you click in there, it's going to show those dates. If you want to know if it's got a renewal option, you can see if it's got that renewal option. You can select and modify multiple leases at once. So this was where we were showing you that you're able to click into multiple leases and adjust both the start and the end date for them at the same time, or even, if you're extending the end date of one lease and you've got a prospect set up after it, it's going to keep that downtime in between those two leases and adjust that prospect. And then lastly, easily identify the leases with renewal options and renew those leases. We didn't actually show you actually renewing the leases all the way through, but we did show you how to get to that option, which is just a couple clicks of the mouse. Overall, one of the tools that I was most excited we released within the past year. But yeah, amazing and just really fun to play with, and makes interacting with the suite view that much more entertaining and easy for the user. So the next area that we started to hear challenges and requests for solutions was over the issue of managing budgets over time. So currently, whenever a user would have to go in and create a budget for the next year, they would have to pretty much start from scratch or create a copy of one budget at a time. Extremely time consuming, a lot of steps to get through the process. And just not a easy solution for our users. So some of these requests and challenges that we were asked for was, again, number one, the time spending starting from scratch each year. You can only modify or roll forward one budget at a time. Our users always want to have the latest and greatest data when doing a reforecast or doing a budget in the future. Number four, and this is a real big one just from my history of budgeting, is keeping the same live model. I was a big proponent of having the same budget living for years upon years in my previous lives, and that just made it easier so I could always look back at the history of the budget. And then lastly, attempting to manage the budgeting process with a small admin team can be very difficult if there's not a way to manage budgets in mass and keep that one living document. So what we've actually created is a new option called the Modify Budgets. And this here is really a living budget document that you are able to add years to, remove years from, and really makes that whole process easier going from year to year. So let's jump into the demo. All right, and so in this demo, I'm going to walk you through showing exactly where the Modify Budgets option is. So if you go to the hamburger menu, go down to the options, you'll find Modify Budgets. I'm going to walk through very quickly, put in some information here. So the select filters for Modify Budgets, this is what's going to filter down the entities and the budgets you're going to work with. And being able to do this, it's going to select all those that are alike. When you go to the select entity portion, you have 4 different options to choose an entity with. I always select all, simply because it will give me every single budget that falls into those original filters. And in this case, when I was actually going through the demo, I did mess up and I selected something for 1 year, and I didn't have any 1-year budgets out there, so I had to go back to 3 years. And as I move back through this, we're now to the budget data to modify. And this is really the powerful part of the modified budget process that we've created, is we are now able to extend years to the end of the budget, take years off of the front of the budget, reload new CM data, reload new CM assumptions, create a copy of the original budget, which we highly recommend before transitioning and adding data onto here, changing what data is going to be used for workbook conflicts. And just a lot of stuff that you were able to do with one budget in the past, you can now select multiples. Another real cool thing that we've added is when you do go in and select to apply new CM assumptions, you can go in and choose how you want your leases and budgets locked. So for this particular one that I was running, I wanted to lock the prospects so I wouldn't lose any of the prospects. But you are able to go and you can lock current leases, you can lock suites, any way you want to do it, or just have it follow how each budget was set up. And then when you do get to the CM assumptions, there's now an option to where you can use one of your other budgets as a starting point for these assumptions versus having to memorize what you want your assumptions to be. So if you've got one budget and you want all other budgets to follow those same CM assumptions, you can click that here. And just really kind of lets you create a reforecast and keeps that document living. This one was a little bit quicker of a demo just because there's so much detail to it that it will serve you guys better and our users better if you do go in and play around with it on your own. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to us. But yeah, I mean, with this modified budget process, there were quite a few things that were asked of us, and the big takeaways that we do have for the modified budget process, or as some customers like to call it, our rolling reforecast, is that it's an easy to use guided process. So even without seeing the demo that we quickly shown you, I would put money on that a good majority of all of our users be able to go through and easily go through the process of modifying a budget and rolling a forecast forward and not have that many issues. There's a streamline and common structural change and data refresh. So Again, you're able to do this in mass. You're able to modify multiple budgets at once. And with it being multiple, it's very streamlined, so you're not having to go into each budget individually to do it. And then the last real nice thing about the modified budgets and rolling forecast is that sometimes some of our solutions are geared only towards commercial or residential. This process is actually available for both commercial and residential users. So again, another great process that just really makes it easier for our users to use our software and simplifies the overall budgeting process for our users. All right, so the third item that we're going to look at today in regards to a new feature that was released within the past year is our commercial prospect entry and management of those prospects. As we saw in the classic suite view, it was kind of hard to tell which prospects were which, wasn't really, easy to maneuver. And so that was some of the requests that we got that kind of crossed over into prospect entry and the management of the prospects too. The first item that we did have is users need an easier entry and review process. And I took this one very serious because when I came onto MRI, I jumped in and was looking at how to set up prospects, and there was just so much information that was needed in the old way of doing it that it kind of made my head spin a little bit, and I didn't fully know what was needed, when it was needed, and why it was needed. The second item is that sometimes prospects just need basic info. Sometimes all that we have is we have a lease start date, a lease end date, and a rent amount, and that's fine. And that's all that we need, and that's all that is expected for that budget. Managing rent steps, those are a pain, and we have heard that loud and clear. It is not the easiest thing to go in and manage a rent step, but hopefully with this new prospect entry and management system that we've created, that becomes a lot easier. And you cannot create a prospect from a similar lease currently already in BNF or in commercial management. So you always have to start from scratch. And then lastly, there's always a lot of variations in the templates to manage when you are setting up a new prospect. So what we created is we created an item called basic prospect entry. So let's jump into that demo. All right, so first thing we'll see here is we are on the enhanced suite view again. Again, one of my favorite view items that we've released. And we are going to, just originally look and see how easy it is now to tell, again, which prospect is in which suite. It's got the prospect's name there. And now if we move around, we can quickly go in and click on an open lease spot, and we'll see this area at the bottom that says create basic prospect. That's the area we're going to want to click into. When this opens, the very first thing that I'm sure everyone will notice is there are no tabs that go in between. It is literally one page. You can scroll up and down through the page and get all the information in it you want. Now, if we start at the top here, you do have the option to start with a template, which I'm going to just pick a 1-year template here just to walk us through the process. But these are all the templates we have set up. You could have also chosen a prospect or a commercial lease that is currently in the budget you're looking at. So what you did notice too is when I put that when I did put that template in there, it gave a rent start date based on the month that I had the that I had chosen before coming in here. I put it automatically calculated an expiration date because it's a 12-month term, and I created a occupant name, and it does also pull in the management fee rate automatically now. We have buttons up to the right here, and those buttons will actually move you from section to section, or you are also able to tab from section to section. So in this case, I just tab down. Execution date I'm not going to use, but that does come in handy for some of the recurring costs and lease cost commission items. So in this step here, I'm showing you how easy it is to add a recurring charge, so base rent, You can do amount type, so you can do flat amount, PSM, you can do frequency, you can do annual, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually. You can choose all those. And then you can also go in and set up rent steps. So in this instance, see how this is a 12-month lease. I'm going to go in and I'm going to set up a rent step for 6 months. It's just going to be a percentage. So I'm just going to increase it a little bit. And when I create that step, you'll notice immediately that a second recurring charge appears, and it has the new amount for that rent step in 6 months. So extremely easy to adjust rent steps, and just really takes, a lot of the headache out of having to go into the full details when setting up those rent steps. So again, here I just tab down to the lease costs and commissions. This is, again, very editable. You can choose what type of lease cost it's going to be. You can choose if it's, a percentage of charges, if it's a flat amount. You can choose the payout schedule. Really, anything that you would do in the detailed setup, you can do now in the basic prospect entry. We do have a recoveries portion. The one thing with recoveries is this is going to pull in the recoveries and how they're set up on a current template or for a current lease inside of the budget. However, we do not allow you to enter any new recoveries just due to how difficult they can be, how complex they can be. We can only delete recoveries currently in the basic prospect demo. And then CPI, you can add those too. This case, I just went ahead, did not add anything in there, but did show how you can kind of do a drag and drop. And lastly, when you save and continue, we can see that Subby's Sub Shop is now a new prospect out there in the budget that, is set up just like any other prospect would be set up. So some of you might be asking or saying to yourselves, hey, this is great. We can do this for new prospects. But what about our current leases and current prospects or MLAs that we currently have out there? Well, good news, we're going to jump into a second demo here and show that by building off of this basic prospect entry, we also now have a new section called basic lease details, in which case, or basic lease details, in which case you can do the exact same thing and adjust current leases. So let's jump into that demo. All right, so again, here we are on the enhanced suite view. Just looking at, some of the leases here. Right here is where it's got the basic lease details. I'm going to click on that. When we do open this up, what you'll notice is you come in here, it's got all the lease detail header information. So it's got the term, it's got the property name, it's got the initial date, the rent start date, it's got the expiration date. I can go in, I can change the term. So if you notice there, I turned it into a 48-month lease, and it automatically adjusted the expiration date. I can go in, I can add new recurring charges, which I'm going to do here. Just go in, add it in there. And if I were to click save, it would have stayed and it would have been adjusted and calculated after the user calculated the workbook. Again, lease costs and commissions, recoveries, same sort of thing. I'm able to delete one. So let's just go ahead and delete this one. And I think that's all that I'm going to do on this one here. But if I do click save and close, it's going to take me back to the screen. And now if I open this up, what we'll notice is that it's saved as that 48-month saved as that 48-month term. And we do have the updated prospect, or in this case, the updated CM lease that has now had changes made to it, and just has really made the whole situation easier for the user to adjust and manage these prospects and these leases. So very similar to the basic prospect entry process. but still wanted to show you how you can look at it and just look at the basic details as well. So wrapping up the commercial prospect management aspect here, again, we created a streamlined approach for our users. We heard everyone loud and clear that it was too complicated, too time consuming, and sometimes users don't have all the information. So it's very streamlined, one page approach. We are able to scroll up and down and really get the most bang for your buck. We've given our users the ability to use a spec lease template, an existing lease, or a prospect lease as a starting point for all of their basic prospect setups. So, you know, if there's a lease you really like, you can use that as a starting point, and that's what you will, you know, start off with, and you can adjust the lease from there. And then you can easily set up the term, the cost, the commissions, the rents, and the steps. And my biggest one here is really those rent steps. I mean, those rent steps sometimes could be a killer and a big time consumer to get them set up correctly. So I do love the fact that we set that up.